Hey everybody, he's on his way back, but now be bringing something in. I bring this around so I can see it. All right. Hopefully everybody can hear us today. I guess if there's any sound issues, let us know. We have a new camera. Um, Hopefully this will give us a good picture and it works. Erin says hello. Hi, Erin. Welcome. You're almost always the first person for so yay you. We're having an absolutely gorgeous day here, weather-wise. Kind of nice. I can hear you. Good. Awesome. I'm glad. Ian will be back in a couple of minutes picking something up house. Aga says, hello. Everything good so far? All right. Technical issues are so much fun. Like computers, there are days. But we got a new piece of equipment so that Ian can do his videos without having to use both computers. So comes in. It says Smoky here. Where are you're north of us, aren't you? Or you're somewhere else altogether. I don't know where you are. I'm sorry, it's smoky there. So far, we're lucky here on the coast. We don't have any smoke, but inland, I understand that it's pretty terrible. North Idaho, yeah. You're near the largest fire in Oregon, then. I'm not surprised that it's smoky where you are. And then you've got all the fires up in British Columbia. They had like 5,800 or 58,000 lightning strikes in like a week and started a bunch of fires. It's like a huge number of lightning strikes. It was amazing. So, yeah, certainly we're right in the middle of the weather. I have Ian's new sign that I thought would be fun to show everybody for his new channel. He made this. Does that show up? Yes, looks like it does. I can't see through it. It covers up my face. Yes, awesome. So he had fun making this. So I'll put that down. I think it's great. I like the two different parts and so forth. And Ian says, blessed be everyone. We've been having a lot of deer wandering around. I saw two this morning before you got up, walking up the street, two does. Yep. The cat was very interested. Like, ooh, what's that? Sandcat says, hello everyone. Hi, Sandcat. Welcome. Hello. Nice to have a nice day. I treasure them when they happen. Yesterday was pretty nice too. Ian says, please feel free to participate even if you are a beginner. Absolutely. That's what we're here for. We're both advanced and intermediate and beginner. I guess that's not both, that's all. That's three is more than two. Hmm.
Something on your off. Bit low contrast.
Oh well, I'm sure we'll we'll get this tuned in as we go along.
Yeah.
Always learning. There's always more things to learn.
Well, since we've got a new camera, adjustments like all of them.
Yep. That is the way that goes. My water. Yes. Okay. Get my water. Violet says, hello, you two. Hi, Violet.
Hello.
I wanted to be all sunny today. So I dressed in orange and wore my Oregon sunstone that was made for me by Jacqueline. I love her work. Pretty fantastic stuff that she does. Pilot says, I'm just listening as I ready for market in 3 days. Ah, that's right. Your house is going on the market. I think I read that on my
Oh,
Facebook page this morning.
I moved so much as a child. I never want to move again. We bought this house and that's it. I want to just stay here until we die or win the lottery.
Yep. And then
Maybe
expand this
just,
house.
but at least we could decide at that point if we want to move or
Right.
something.
Exactly.
Depends on how much you win.
It all depends.
Win a couple 100,000, we'll pay off our house. Win 10 million,
We
we
might get a
might
new
think about it.
place.
Yep.
We might think about it. Yep. But hey, that over there. Astra says, "Hey everyone. Hi Astra. I hope that you're doing okay. I know you're a lot closer to all the fires down there in California." Violet says, "Laugh out loud." Ha ha. Yep. Talk about smoke. Some big fires in the entire Northwest.
Again, I'm glad we live on the coast.
Now, between California and then the big fire that's near Idaho and Oregon is the largest fire in our state. Then the British Columbia fires, which are numerous, a lot of
Well,
them.
not only that, but we had like one day of really, really hot, maybe 2 days of one day of really hot and one day of like semi-hot, and the rest have been just comfortably warm.
Yeah, like today.
Yeah, it might be a little overly warm today, but not very much. It's
Yep,
pretty good.
it's pretty nice. The thing is, you never know for sure. Life can just sort of throw a monkey wrench into your life at any moment. My son, his I guess father-in-law, fell, broke his hip, had to have emergency hip surgery. Like out of the blue, bam. Dancat says, my dog has been scared at night in her kennel. I don't know why, in and out of the house all night, keeping me awake. I cleansed her kennel and put a piece of black tourmaline. She's happy now. That's good, because animals are pretty sensitive to the comings and goings of things we don't always see ourselves. Astor says, yeah, I'm scared, but trying to be positive. It's not good for my asthma, and luckily car battery just died. So even though I'm safe for now, it makes me nervous. Ooh, I'm sorry. Yaga says, I heard everybody's emotions can affect the weather. Is that true? Well, I mean, seriously? There are so many different emotions on the planet. I really don't think our emotions are a factor when it comes to the weather in particular. I suppose anything is possible, but there is that story from China where they were having terrible weather and they invited a monk to come and get their weather right. They moved out of town and lived in a cottage by himself, and then the weather got better. That it was because, they had such terrible thoughts. But I would imagine it's a fairly localized phenomenon and not a worldwide thing. I think that other factors like solar energy and things in the atmosphere that we've pumped into it and gases releasing as things melt with
Yeah, I
methane
mean,
popping out of the ocean is a lot more
I
of a
mean,
factor.
things like that could have a little bit of an effect, but everybody's got some different emotion and thinking something different. I mean, it would just
All the
all be
time.
chaotic. So,
There's 7 billion
you
plus
know,
8 billion now
yeah,
people.
unless everybody's going the same direction to make a mass of energy in one direction, it's just going to be chaotic. It's like trying to listen to, one voice out of a crowd of 5,000 people. You get his noise, really.
Yeah, I mean the amount of focus and concentration and unity it would take for it to actually affect the weather, I think is pretty huge. Theoretically possible, but in practicality, I like to deal with things that are practical myself and instead of fanciful when it comes to that. Astra says, let's see, Dan Cat says something was scaring her. And Astra said, I got my neighbor, who's also a witch, to come with me to conjure rain. It didn't work yet, but we're hopeful. The humidity did increase, though. Good. Good humidity is a good idea. I'm not sure, I can't understand anything that person is saying. Just a bunch of arrows. Asha says, I asked the weather spirits to do us a solid and make it rain. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are trying to help with that, and hopefully it'll work, because certainly the firefighters all want rain. I mean, they don't want to be in there fighting a fire. Grateful Owl says, hello. Hi, Owl. How you doing?
All right.
Unless they give us more than just arrows, there's nothing I can do.
Okay. This is clearly some sort of.
Okay, we're going to be blocking someone. Grateful Owl says, just got back from a yard sale, brought home
All
more
right.
buttons. Buttons? Do you make things with buttons? I mean, there's button art and stuff like that, so just wondered. We haven't had a spammer in a while.
Yeah.
I guess we got used to not having to worry about that, so thank you.
Well, I wasn't sure for a moment, but it's just a bunch of gobbledygook we can't read.
Well, there's no
It's
point.
just junk on the page.
Yeah, there's really no point. So, but yay for buttons. There's some pretty fantastic looking buttons out there. I have found some pretty awesome buttons in the past. It's like you look at them and you go like, this is like a work of art. This is so unique and interesting. So, Astra says, do you collect buttons, Grateful Owl? And Grateful Owl says, yes, I collect some for display and I can make earrings and rings out of others. Yeah. And I've sometimes incorporated them into jewelry myself. Certain types of buttons, not all of them, it depends. I found these really neat sort of green glass round buttons with a golden uh, kind of design on the outside of them, and they had this nice little hole, or like a ring kind of a thing that they dangled. So they were too heavy, I think, for earrings, but I think I used them on a couple of necklaces. They're kind of neat that way. Interesting. Esther says that sounds like a good hobby. Yeah. It's always fun finding unique things out in the world. And I've been amazed at some of the things that we have found in local shops where we live. I mean, like, statues, like the Garuda statue that I picked up from Salvation Army was quite the find. And I've gotten a lot of my goddess statues from Goodwill and
Yeah,
sometimes
well,
from hospice.
a lot of times you go in there and find nothing. You just got to be there when the right thing comes through.
Well, you have to let the universe know
Yeah.
that you're going to be making regular trips, and then I put in my order and say I'm looking for this. So,
Yeah. Which
get it lined up. It's
we don't do like we haven't visited.
been a while.
Yeah. Most of
Great.
the stuff you find is just boring, junkish.
Grateful Al says maybe I'll post a pic of some of my favorites on the Facebook group later. Yeah, some of your favorite buttons. That'd be cool. We'd be into that. Now that we're past all the weird whatever that was, get back into the swing of things here. All right. So what do we want to talk about today? Have any ideas? Astra says, I went through some of your earlier videos, Siofra, and they've been really helpful. The cup cleansing, healing chant, and learning about casting a decent circle. Good stuff. Yeah, when I first started the channel, I had no idea whether it was going to last or whatever. And the first videos I put out were the ones I thought were the most important pieces of information that I had learned from all of my experience that I really wanted to share with everybody. So thank you for looking at them, because just because they're older doesn't mean that they're not still valid. I know nowadays a lot of times people just look for new content and they don't look back, see what's actually already there, but our channel is somewhat different when it, from that perspective. We're not always trying to push whatever agenda might be currently going on.
The newest thing is, right?
Right. We're here to try and provide a foundational information that people can use to, launch from and then ask questions about. And so, yay. That's why I put them out there. I want them to be a resource for the magical community to find out more about what they're interested in. And I know you said something about it was a lot more complicated than than you realized in your message to me. And I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of detail in doing the kind of magic that we do that isn't just really obvious when you're first starting out. So good. That's just that it's nice to be able to raise my own energy and spirits and having to rely on anyone else to self-regulate and not having to rely on anyone else to self-regulate. Yeah, and that's taking charge and being, responsible for your own energy, environment, and so forth, which is a really a key part of developing natural authority. So I think that's a good direction to go. Astro says, and I've been practicing getting my energy from the earth. I feel a lot more solid lately. Says, yep. Well, certainly it's a voluminous source, like, of energy that's like there all the time, regardless of what might be going on in our lives or in our environment or what have you. The earth energy is always available for us if we tap into it. And then we're less exhausted and distracted, I think. I think it helps us focus, getting in touch with our biosphere, really connecting with the energy of the life forms around us. Apparently, last week, my granddaughter saw a fairy at one of her jobs, and I was asking her for some detail about it when just this week to see if I could get more information. And her description, as well as I can remember, is that she noticed there was a leaf on a plant that was sort of moving all by itself, and there wasn't any wind and no other leaves were moving, so it drew her attention to the plant, and she was wondering and looking at it like, why is that moving by itself? Maybe there's some weird little air current or whatever. Then all of a sudden this face popped out from behind the plant, and she got a very clear, distinct look at it, and its colors were green and brown and sort of arky looking. And then it saw her see it, and then it was like, oh, and then it turned around and ran away. So I guess they were both surprised. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I thought that was pretty cool that you saw that. And I think that that is one of the things that one of the indications when you're out in the woods, you see something acting abnormally outside of the usual, like with air currents, like in this case with the leaf moving. That might be one of the ways that the fairies are trying to attract our attention by having an impact on the natural environment. Yaga says there's something going around the internet called skinwalkers. Is this a real being? I don't know. I mean, it certainly is a myth. And, I've met some actual myths, like some deities and so forth. Never met a skinwalker. Don't know if it's a real myth, like factually based or not.
Right. It does come from Native American tradition, background, and stuff.
But all different cultures have got boogeymen of one kind or another that they have as part of their mythology, and I don't know if having the assumption that all of them must be based on real encounters and understanding and comprehension of what's going on is necessarily the best approach to take when you're looking at some of this information. But people certainly do like to jump on the skinwalker bandwagon.
That's the thing, and it's hard to get any true information about it from the Native American people since they don't want to talk about them and they're considered like an evil spirit kind of thing. So
Dangerous.
Even though they were supposedly people that become skinwalkers, whatever.
Certainly, the paranormal shows have a blast using their
yeah.
characters.
So I haven't been able to run across enough information myself to decide whether there's any validity in any of it or it's just entirely mythological.
I can tell you right now that there are probably thousands upon thousands of different types of beings, spirits, and animals and plants that I've never met that I don't know anything about. So we all have our very limited sphere of experience.
That is something that would interest me if there are actually any magical rights or anything to be known about them. But I think it's one of those things that if it is legitimate, it's so deeply buried, probably never find out any true information. It's like Wade Davis in The Serpent and the Rainbow when he went looking for the zombie powder. He was just really lucky. He managed to find his way through maze and morass of fakers
Yep.
and illusions and deluded people and things like that to find that there really was a real something at the bottom of it. But it took him a lot of work to even find out that there was anything legitimate about it at all.
So Asher said, wow, about the fairy story. Raphael says, from the Dene, also known as Navajo. There is one Navajo guy talking about them on YouTube, Dan Glenn. Well, okay. We're glad to hear that someone is talking about it who might have an actual knowledge base, but it's definitely not us.
Yeah, well, to judge it myself, I'd have to, not just hear stories about it, but hear and see how this is supposedly accomplished and what supposedly happens and how they go about it to verify if there's validity to it myself. Either that or actually see one change. I think I'm not likely to happen.
No, I think that's unlikely. I have an open invitation for anyone who's a werewolf to come by, and
Sorry.
what have I got?
Something hanging from your chin there. I think it was just a piece of your hair from your head that broke off, but sorry. It kept swinging in the wind and sorry.
Okay. Thank you for saving me from an errant hair.
I don't think anybody can see it, but.
Refile says, dog man? Laugh out loud. I don't know. I mean, I've had a lot of personal experiences and encounters with a lot of things, but that's not one of them. Asher says, do you think people can warg into animals? Because sometimes when I fly around astrally, I wonder if I dropped into the body or a bird that was already flying, or if I'm just an orb flying around.
Well,
Yeah, I do. There is a method for doing that, for connecting with the animal consciousness and for merging with it and being able to see through its eyes.
yes, there absolutely is. So that is valid. The skinwalker thing usually refers to people who could theoretically, physically change their shape through transformation. I haven't seen any real information that indicates that type of transformation really happened.
Right.
Barton has some amazing stuff, but not really changing himself into something else.
Yeah, but merging with another form of consciousness has its
Oh, yeah.
risks for sure, because there's several different potential risks. One is finding out that your beautiful little sweet kitty cat is not actually beautiful and sweet from its own perspective, and being able to withstand the shock of that complete information coming through.
Yeah, because when I did that, it was a shock of like meeting an alien consciousness, because cats do not think at all the same way we do.
No.
Well, I mean, they don't have conscious thoughts and words, obviously, but yeah, a cat's self-image is nothing like we might think it is. The nice little cute pet we pet all the time.
Yep.
So
We project what we think
shock.
it is
Yep.
onto the kitty cat, and the kitty cat is just like, yeah, whatever. You feed me, I love you, this is good.
Especially our cat. He's pretty mellow. He's like whatever to about anything that happens, including these snappy devices we have to scare the bunny off the couch.
Oh my, yes. He
Cat
doesn't
just
care
goes,
about him.
I don't care.
He sits on him, makes him snap off, and just goes like, yeah, okay.
He's very nonchalant. Except when it comes to food, he's obsessed.
Astra says, I do it spontaneously. I'm not proficient at traveling yet. I'll just be randomly somewhere. Yeah, me too, actually. I mean, even though I do it, last night, for example, I found myself somewhere looking at these stones in the street where I was, and the pavement was kind of broken up in spots, and I was looking around trying to figure out where the heck I was. I still don't know where I was, but it was very vivid for a few minutes. I was like, what am I doing? Where am I going? So I'm trying to get better at remembering that stuff. Astra says, oh my god, it would be cool to warg into my cat, with his permission, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Intraday Trader says how to protect one from evil eye or negative energy. Well, keep your own energy to yourself and learn how not to accept negative energy from outside sources so that it doesn't have to affect you.
Of course, if somebody's like trying to zap you from a fly or something, it's always good to reflect it back.
Well, being in charge of your own energy field would be part of that. Like, not have a reason that someone thinks they need to zap you would be another good one.
Well, you know how people are, though.
But I know, yep, some people are just very full of rage and want to go out and do things to people just because they're nasty people and I don't understand them. But
Yeah, my general recommendation. I have kind of a generalized recommendation for that kind of stuff, and that's to charge up a tiger eye to reflect back negative energy and just carry that with you by whatever means. You know, necklace, it can be in a pouch, you can just carry it in your pocket.
right,
However, it's easy to lose it if you carry it in your pocket, so I'd recommend a pouch or something.
tiger eye, labradorite,
Yeah. And
spectralite.
just charge it up as strongly as you can, at least with your willpower, if nothing else. Charge it up really strongly and impress upon it that it's going to reflect negative energy back to the sender. And I think that's karmically good because the person puts out their energy, it's their energy, giving it back to them adds no additional harm and it impacts your karma not at all.
That's what I think too.
Yeah.
Regardless of the light workers thinking that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
But they can think whatever they want.
It's their own energy, it goes back to them. If you want to look at it that way, it might hurt them exactly as much as they tried to hurt you. I think that's justice myself.
Yes, consequences. Consequences is how we learn. Eve says, "Hey everyone, hope everyone's having a great Sunday." Hi Eve. Yeah, we're having a nice Sunday here. So
Yes, we are.
yeah, was the crows were out early this morning. I fed them, and interesting watching them waiting to come down, trying to decide what order they were coming in and so forth. But once they got into it, of course, they were all very happy. Filled up the bird bath, and a couple of them availed themselves of the facilities, which was kind of fun to watch. I'm sure the cat finds that very entertaining as well. Yeah, cat TV. Cat says, as I learn more, I find that doing a quick cleansing of negative energy around me each morning and picking up a random rune is helping with my well-being. Yeah, paying attention to what's going on and being in charge of your energy field is the ticket. There's no doubt about it. You can make it a choice, and sort of figure out what kind of a day you're going to attract or have by, partially at least, by how you comport yourself. Astra says, I have white little orbs, mostly fairies and maybe human orbs, hard to tell, that fly in and out of my body, and I tell them to get out, think they are playing or using me as a portal. Yeah, that's not okay. You don't want to be using a portal. I had a human spirit use me as a portal once and left a whole bunch of mental imagery, impressions, and emotional impressions behind as she went through my body and to the other side. I actually watched a video of a woman who uses her own body as the portal. That's how she does the helping spirits cross over. And it looks extremely dangerous and uncomfortable and messy and yeah, not what I would like at all. And from my minor experience with it, I'm convinced I'm right. That's a bad idea. But there's other ways of opening up portals. So, Intraday says, where do I get tiger eye? Any rock shop. They're probably one of the most commonly, easily accessible things. You go into any store that has rocks, and they have little containers of some of the more typical stones like amethyst, rose quartz, tiger eye, labradorite. And they're usually just a couple of dollars. You can get a pretty small one for not too much.
Yeah, I'd recommend tiger eye or labradorite. Tiger eye is kind of a yellowish brownish color, and labradorite can be greenish and bluish.
Well, there's different kinds of tiger eye too. I've got a green tiger eye, and then I've got an iron,
and
iron eye, tiger iron.
I would recommend charging it up probably several times if you're not used to charging things up. you just use your willpower and you just enforce that on it, that it's going to reflect back negative energy, and you also impress the idea on it with your willpower that it will continue working day after day, and it will remain charged and will not be diminished.
It'll get stronger and stronger.
Stronger and stronger, yep. And then do that to it, charge it up for several days in a row like that. Then you can carry it around and just keep yourself convinced that it's working. And then if you charge it up well, it will be fairly effective, actually.
You can like hold it in your hand and imagine like a ball of energy coming out of it like a shield and repelling negative energy. So that whenever you're holding it, it goes out like that in all directions as a sphere, and the more you visualize that, the stronger it gets.
Yeah. And impressing that on there is called charging it, because the stone will accept your feelings and emotions about that. And also, I would probably recommend, especially important for a beginner, to not mention it to anybody, because until you get really strong at charging things up and impressing it, things like that can naturally take on others' impressions and things. So, yeah, that's a whole nother subject, but I would recommend not mentioning it to anybody, or that it's a tiger eye or what have you. Just carry it around, full secret. That way, nobody's thoughts can interfere with the charging.
Yeah, I agree.
Which normally, if you've done it for years and you're really good at charging things, you set it up and you don't need to worry about other people's thoughts and things interfering. But for a beginner, I think that's very helpful.
So Astra says they might be helping my aura. I think it's mostly fairies, but I don't like all of that. Gaga says if you give someone permission to do something negative or harmful to you, will the bad karma still come back to them?
Yes.
The answer is yes.
Yes.
Because taking advantage of someone who has a weak will, who's willing to give you permission to do them harm, is bad.
Yeah, it'll still come back to you. It's like I liken it to a mechanical thing. It's like a thing with levers and gears. If you start it in motion, it does something, and it doesn't matter human judgments whether they think it's good or you think it's bad. Karma happens automatically, like an energetic thing and connections and things. It's just like a mechanical thing. You do it and the karma happens, whether the person thinks it's good or bad or whatever.
Or whether they agree to it or not, doesn't matter.
It's not so much a judgmental thing. So it's not a judgment like this is good karma, that's bad karma, this is good or that's bad. Karma is really just an effect. It's an effect of your action.
Yeah, depending on the size of rock you throw into a pool, you're going to get a smaller or bigger wave.
And your actions, I mean, a lot of karma's effect depends on what you really think subconsciously do. So karma can affect you through your thoughts, making you think differently, making you feel differently as a result of your actions. All of that's karma.
Chief Keef says, Egregor's gone wild. Astra says, they're very tiny orbs, so I don't think they're human, but some might be. I think most of the orbs are fairy orbs playing, but I'm not sure. But if they're human, I'm not okay with that. Well, they could be just energy, not necessarily a consciousness, because I see little sparks all the time on a regular basis, and they're not like, it's just the life energy that becomes visible to my eyes and my perception, and lots of things give them off, and they don't necessarily have conscious thought processes behind them. They're just like where they are.
Yeah, and a friend of ours tried letting one into him that was a poltergeist that he thought they could communicate with, but it wasn't a being of any sort that they could communicate with. It was like a wild animal or a wild force. There was no communicating with it. It couldn't speak to him or anything. That's a whole story on its own. But
well, yeah, that's more than just the tiny little sparks that we see floating in the air. That's a completely different thing.
Well, that was a really powerful poltergeist. But
right.
The same principle. It didn't have an intelligence. It wasn't like an intelligent being doing things. It was like some kind of I guess, collection of forces or something, but it wasn't intelligent. and it caused him trouble for years. He never should have let it into him. Caused him trouble with astral traveling and stuff for a long time afterward.
Grateful Owl says other people's thought germs.
Yep.
Yep. Chief Keef says it's all fractals. Astor says I'm more creeped out by human spirits. If they're just fairies playing, I'm not as weirded out. Oh, you're right. And I have a full Kundalini, so it could be a prana type thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So,
that happens with Kundalini. In fact, one of the major things that a particular type of enlightenment that happens with Kundalini uh, when people are awakened and their chakra is awakened is the experience of a giant ball of light coming into their body and actually coming into them like a little sun and filling them. And that's they. Most of the accounts I've read that have that happen, it seems to be an external light that comes from somewhere, from a distance or on the horizon, and comes into them and then flows into them. That's how they perceive it, and there are a number of masters that have gotten illuminated by Kundalini in that fashion that have accounts written. So it's interesting, but Kundalini is all internal, but they perceive it as an external orb of light coming towards them in that
right.
instant.
Well, the Kundalini energy itself often feels like it's coming from outside of yourself because it's just so intense and overwhelming. So, Chief Keef says, I have this theory. I think poltergeists communicate through binary, hence the knocking. Well, they don't all knock, but I have no clue. Usually the knocking is like 3 knocks is what most people hear. But then they do the like knock once for yes and twice for no. That's a pretty traditional method for communicating with spirits from way back. And whether that's an actual manifestation of a spirit being or whether it's the subconscious of the people who are sitting at the table that are making a knocking sound.
This one poltergeist thing that my friend experienced was it did one thing. All of a sudden
Furniture.
there'd be a big whoomp in the middle of the night, and all the furniture would be piled in a pile in the middle of the room.
Couches, chairs,
Yep.
everything. Just lots of energy.
Yep.
Huge amount of energy to do that.
Huge amount of energy, but no intelligence behind it.
Yep. Astra says, yes, that makes sense, Ian. This stuff is filmable. I have videos of the orbs. They are physically visible, and my neighbor has them in her house, too. I think it's interesting that they're becoming visible to people. Astra says she has a full Kundalini, too. Yeah, Kundalini is an interesting experience for sure. Mine's been going the last couple of days pretty strongly. It's always interesting when it gets into that active phase. Ah, fun and games.
Yeah, Kundalini is a whole entire subject on its own, and a big, dense one.
And it's contagious. That's one of the things that I find interesting is that it's contagious. It's like if you're around someone whose Kundalini is awakening or already awakened and yours is anywhere near close to getting to that point,
That's it. You
it's
have
like
to be.
primes the pump and then bam, there you go.
Yeah, it is catching, but if somebody's like a dull tool in the shed,
Well,
you
yeah.
know, and then it's not going to affect them. So, but I have found out you have to be careful too. Sometimes giving people Reiki. If you have Kundalini going at the same time, you can accidentally let some of that leak over into the Reiki, and then you'll experience things affected.
Chief Keef says a lot of people get into a Kundalini psychosis. That's because they're afraid of what's going on, I think.
Yeah,
And their interpretation of the experience becomes sort of filtered by their anxieties, fears, belief systems. Some people think they're being possessed by demons, or that there's succubus and incubus out there, or depending on where the Kundalini is rushing through at the time, and what their cultural belief systems might be, or their religious, spiritual beliefs. And so that's the thing. It's like water. It's a force by itself.
Yeah.
It's just sort of an element kind of thing like that exists.
I'll bet you we'd have actually, I think we'd have a whole lot less problems if it were actually talked about, explained openly for know about it, and if we had this knowledge in our culture, especially if the doctors and things understood this I think we would have a lot less problems, a lot less people psychiatric. And Kundalini itself generally is benign unless you awaken it by force. But the odd sensations it can have, if they're not understood and you don't perceive it's Kundalini, it can cause all sorts of problems. You can feel like you're being touched. I once felt like I was being slapped in the face. I felt like I've had water sprinkled on me, when there was no water around. It causes you all kinds of strange sensations that just freak people out completely if they have no idea where it's coming.
Yeah. And in other cultures, like in India, for example, it's a well-known thing that people experience. They expect that everybody has the potential to experience the Kundalini, and it's not a secret or a surprise if it happens. So they have built into their mythology and culture and so forth a method for dealing with it and accepting the energy when it happens and seeing it as something positive. So that helps with the potential psychosis stuff. Aga says, oh, wait a minute. Aster says, I probably caught it from looking at her in the eyes. She smiled at me when she first moved in, and I was afraid of her because I knew something was going to happen. Then I found a snake shed in front of my place. All right, transformation. Way to go. Aga says, how come I can't see spirits, but I can see them caught on YouTube videos? Because
Well,
YouTube videos are not real life necessarily?
yeah, I haven't honestly seen a spirit on a video so far that I believed was actually a spirit. Barton mentioned some ways to potentially photograph some, but I've never seen one I believed, and most of them I've seen I can figure out how they're fake pretty easily.
Yeah.
It's my own take on the matter.
I mean, if I'm there in person and I see something and feel something that goes along with it, I have more than just a single sense that's involved in the process. So I'm more trusting of my own personal experiences, obviously, than I am of something that, for all I know, was manipulated. And I don't need evidence to prove that they exist since I have enough personal experiences to know that they exist. So I'm not looking to try and find something to prove that they're real.
I will add that you can learn there is a process to learn to have clairvoyance. It's an attainable ability. So,
Yeah, okay. Astro says, I knew it meant something, then bam, Kundalini. Beth says, hi, everybody. Better late than never. Hope everyone has been doing great. Hi, Beth. Welcome. Dan Cat says, most people I encounter are not awakened at all. They only want to talk about their health problems. I find people unload on me and never ask how I'm doing. I'll stick with talking to the birds. Yeah, well, that's one of the banes of being an empath. They go like, hey, here is an open vessel that I can pour all my stuff into, and I will feel better when I leave.
I talk to all kinds of things. I talk to animals, birds, trees, plants.
Mhm. Asher says, yeah, I can feel external. That's why people get scared. Tails
Yeah.
told in the dark says, hello. Hi, Tails. Chief Keef says the sensation of water droplets is actually a side effect of DMT. Odd thing is that people with so-called neurodivergent traits tend to feel those very often. Well, nerves are very interesting because they can create all kinds of sensations. It's quite remarkable. Asher says, I'm lucky I figured out what it was and called the parapsychologist who confirmed it was a full awakening. Lucky I didn't go into psychosis. Yeah, that's no fun. Magical psychosis is not quite the same thing as psychosis caused by Kundalini, but it's similar in that it has to do with the way the person is thinking and what they're focusing on and the energy that they're putting into it and the assumptions that they make and the fears that they feed.
Yeah,
So,
and I would say too that a lot of the Kundalini stuff you hear is just bull, just like a lot of the fake photographs and stuff you find on YouTube. I mean, it can be potentially dangerous, but I think a lot of the things people say and attribute it to it are not necessarily Kundalini related at all. You have to watch out because there's a lot of people who want to get excited about things, excited about negative things, and go over the top with it. And I think people being harmed by the Kundalini is actually a little more rare than it seems nowadays. There is some potential there, but it's not that easy to get it awakened fully enough to have problems. But I know there are some cases. There are some.
That says, I'm the same, Ian. Astra says, I film spirit orbs and UFOs, and I brought people over to see them, so we knew I wasn't nuts. I kept bringing them over for months to see the orbs. I live near Mount Shasta, so it's a paranormal hotspot.
I love Mount Shasta.
Yep, me too. Eve says, laugh out loud. I can relate, Sandcat, to most people not being awakened. Yep. Astra says, we even have a Bigfoot sighting in my town. We have all kinds of stuff going on there. The human unconscious and subconscious and spiritual realities all kind of meld together some places.
Wasn't that where that lava tube was? Half-mile tube near Shasta? I thought so. There's some nice lava tubes that you have to get a hold of this Geological Society members find them.
Or figure out how to read the old maps, because they don't show up on the internet. I figured out what the different markings meant on those big maps, and I found us a lot of caves. That's how we found Petroglyph Cave and yeah, all of those caves in Oregon, and then Half Mile Tube outside of Mount Shasta, which was an amazing experience. That was quite an encounter. It was a very shallow lava tube, and it had openings to the forest up above. And there was this very bright golden lichen that was growing throughout the tube. So when you shone a light on it, it sort of looked like a cathedral covered in gold paint. I mean, or, gold leaf. It was quite spectacular. And then we got to one part of the tube and started to see these gold spots that looked a little bit different. And I looked up on the ceiling, and there were these moths that were on the ceiling of the tube, and their eyes glowed gold like the lichen did. And I thought that they were probably dead, and I went to touch one, and its wings moved. And then I realized it wasn't dead. And then we looked on the floor of the tube and realized we were walking through maybe millions of wings from dead moths from the past that had littered the floor and were sort of coming up in a little dust cloud at her feet. It was quite interesting.
Yeah, the whole floor was covered. You couldn't really see the floor under all the moth wings.
Yeah.
That was cool. There was a cave register in the end.
So. Yeah, so the Speleological Society knew about that one.
But they're very careful they want to keep them safe, and they want to keep them intact. And so, yeah, they don't want people partying in caves like that. So that's why the members who know about them
try to go in different directions and try to not make a clear path right to them.
Yeah, they make sure there's not a trail to them or anything like that. So really, except for the fact that managed to figure
decipher
out
the map.
And things.
Yeah, we didn't find that through the Speleological Society. I found that.
Yeah.
And then we were very surprised to find a cave registry at the end. We're like, wow, okay, apparently other people know about this one. This is pretty interesting. But yeah, that's one of the things we liked to do, was going through lava tubes and stuff like that. We were spelunkers.
Yeah, now we're like too old, and it's
retired
also
spelunkers.
too far away. We used to live closer, by several hours closer, so we could get to some of those places, get to Mount Shasta and the lava beds.
Well, yeah, when we lived around Medford area, although I'm glad I'm not there now, it's so hot.
Yeah, but nowadays from here it adds an extra like 3.5 hours to the drive to get to any of the spots, so it's far to go.
Yep.
3.5 hours on top of the 4 hours or something it took to get there, so
it's a commitment.
it's an all-day drive.
It's a commitment. Asher says, yep, it's weird here. Fluid Mystic says, hi guys, hi, how you doing? I'm saying fluid. I know that's not exactly what it says, but
Well, that's basically.
well, it's an FLV. Beth says, it's storming here and have all the windows open. It feels wonderful. Oh, good. Clearing the air, huh? Love how the energy of the storm makes the air smell different and fresher.
Yes, it does.
It really helps a lot. Fluid Mystic says, yeah, fluid was taken. Well, good creative compromise. Dancat says, we have heavy rain here and I'm loving it. Well, they need some of that in California and in Oregon and in British Columbia right now. So anyone who's doing weather magic, if you want to try and send the water in the direction of all those intense wildfires that are happening everywhere, save a bunch of animals in the process, maybe. Hope, hope, hope. But hey, the crows are very excited for some reason. They're out there just going nuts. Somebody must be getting into something they're not supposed to. Maybe there's a neighborhood cat. Astra says, "Oh, you guys are lucky. Send some rain our way." See, I said that already. I said it before you got it in there.
Just so I got the windows open, you can better is
Okay.
actually a fire out in front of the house. I can
Oh, maybe they're hoping I'll come out and give them some more peanuts. That says, "Oh, the energy is amazing. All stale air is gone. All fresh and new." Yes, that's one of the things I like about storms. We were supposed to get like a huge storm last week, and it didn't happen. I was kind of disappointed.
Well, I don't know if other people notice it, but especially it happens in the winter. If I have my windows shut, and then I've had them shut for some time, like days maybe, and open a window, you really get the fresh energy, you get the prana coming in, really noticeable. Like, oh yeah, the room gets depleted of prana from
Oh, you're breathing.
breathing in it. Yep, yep, and then open it up and let that in. It's like, oh,
Yay!
yeah, I can breathe again. It's
Infused.
like it's not an air purity problem at all, but it's like it's air has gotten de-energized. So I can really, I'm really aware of that during closed a lot to keep in.
Chief Keef says, "Love giving them peanuts. It's hilarious how they crack them open." Yeah, they have some very creative methods. There was one pro around here who figured out how to wedge the peanut in between the power line wires so he could work at it without having to hold it with his foot. And I thought for sure that that was going to spread throughout the entire murder, but no, just a couple of them decided that looked like a good idea. They all have their own method. And when I put the water in the bird bath, sometimes they use the water to soften up the shell and, do stuff with it.
Well, and we end up with scallop shells and things here that the crows drop because they've learned that they get a seafood a shell that they can drop it in concrete from a height and get it open that way.
Yep.
So we get some of that around here because we attract so many crows because we
Yep. Beth says, "Our crows love corn." Astra says, "I love crows." Yeah, I think crows are great. Crows and ravens both. And they're different for sure energetically, but they both have some wonderful energy to them. Chief Keef says they sometimes leave feathers as gifts too. Yeah, we get quite a few feathers. They actually leave some good sized feathers on our lawn. Sometimes they stick them in the ground like straight up, so we're sure to see them. It seems pretty clear that that's an on purpose kind of placement because they usually don't fall that way. The wind. I've gotten some feathers when I used to work at my office, in the parking lot out there. They would give me feathers and they would put the feather like on the drive, on the parking lot right next to my driver's door. And there'd be wind blowing around everywhere, but that feather would be as still as could be and just laying there. And
Yeah,
I'd come out there and pick them up.
I didn't tell you one of the feathers that I picked up on one of my walks is a white feather. I think it's probably just a seagull feather. It's not real big though, but it was sticking straight up in the top of a cut off tree and top of a stump, standing straight up, which is why I noticed it.
Oh, that sounds like an interesting feather.
So I decided I had to take it with me. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a good feather. Asher says, "I like magpies. The sound of a flock of them sound beautiful and strange."
Like auto tune.
Like
that.
bird auto tune, yep. Jay says, "Thank you for starting your do-it-yourself coyote channel, Ian. I'm excited to finally learn how to solder and other cool stuff." Awesome. Thank you, Shay. Gaga says, "How do you travel after death? I'd like to go to those esoteric classes in the spiritual world." Why do you have to wait till you're dead? I would recommend doing it while you're not dead. It's like,
Mental and astral travel.
yeah. Fluid Mystic says magpies are funny ones. They scream. Their screams are weird. Yep. Rob Naga says, "What's your opinion on Lilith?" She was, according to the Jewish, um, I can't think of the name of it. The thing before the Bible. Yeah, my brain was Adam's first wife, and she didn't want to do whatever Adam said, and so she was cursed and had to leave. And I don't know if that's true at all. I think that's just another one of those stories to make women of power look somehow evil and manipulative, because then she gave birth to demon children and all this other stuff. So I think it really depends upon what aspect and what kind of religious belief system you're starting with to go on when it comes to that. I don't particularly work with Lilith, so I'm not familiar with her from a personal encounter. Fluid Mystic says, Gaga, I recommend read some funerary texts. The Egyptian ones are interesting. Astra says, laugh out loud, Fluid Mystic. Yep, they sound so weird. I love it. That says, I can't imagine living in the world without astral traveling. Well, it does expand your horizons, right? Steve Keith says, I didn't get to ask last time, but has anyone else ever been to communal places in the astral, like very elaborate world places? Yeah, there are. I've been into some interesting realities that exist there that I did not know even existed, like the mental plane where comic book villains and heroes are working through their storylines for their writers and trying to figure out what works and so forth to inspire their books. And I imagine that if that is a real place, then anything like that, any kind of creative thought, or even not creative thought, but just constant thinking or whatever, creates a place in the astral and or the mental plane where those thoughts are percolating and working through things and going around and whatnot. So
Yeah, and I would add some of those. Speaking of communal places in the astral, first off, Siofra and I had a shared experience before we ever met, in that we both met Doctor Strange on the astral as a character because he had been brought to life. All the people thinking about him, the thought forms and things about him. So he was out there as an actual character.
an astral entity kind of
Yeah,
thing that you could interact with and who could actually do stuff,
yeah, but
which was interesting.
if you're talking most of the good, if there are astral classes generally, Barden talks about this a bit, speaking about the Brethren of Light, that they shield things. By the time you get to the point you can, most of them get to that point, they're able to shield it from people that aren't invited.
And
And
aren't
then
ready.
the specific people are just invited and they're the only ones that can find it because if you know how invisibility on the astral and mental plane is not all that difficult.
Well, when you make your own astral temple, it's only visible for you. You can at some point, if you want to, if you choose to, invite other people to come to your astral temple, but you can create your own space in the astral or mental plane
Yeah, but
and have it, as your own kind of workshop to work through things, etc., and to learn things about your spirit and your past or your abilities or communicate with the elemental kingdoms or different gods and goddesses and so forth. So you can be pretty elaborate with that because there's
yeah,
no restrictions as far as physical
shielding them in
reality.
the astral with the Akasha makes things pretty much unfindable. It's like a form of invisibility, and that's what I like to use. Somebody sending bad energy at me, the Akasha, and just become invisible to that energy. It goes back to its owner. So that's not very difficult to do. So that these things would be hard to find for. Sorry, kind of probably elaborated more than I.
No, I think that's the thing. It's like
Yeah.
there are places, and
Yeah.
Kaka says, I don't know if all the knowledge is down here and I can't leave forever. That's why. Well, I mean, when you're dead, I'm sure you'll figure out how. It's what you're attracted to, where your afterlife is going to be what you think it is going to be. So that's one of the reasons for while we're alive, working on our own subconscious and unconscious attitudes and thoughts and processes and things. Because once you pass, your conscious mind isn't as much in control. It's like everything is riding on what is deep down inside you, is whether you think you deserve to go to hell, whether you're going to go to heaven, whether you're going to go to a Babylonian temple in the ancient past, whatever it happens to be. So you work on that while you're alive so that you can be where you want to be after you die. You can't just decide, I'm going to die and go there. It doesn't work that way. There's like a whole process. So Fluid Mystic says, yeah, I started doing research about Lilith, and there is definitely a connection to Inanna and Lamashtu. I think that Lilith can be a destructive polarization of Inanna Ishtar, but don't know for sure. Yeah, I don't either. Pastor says, I wonder if what people describe as alien sightings are really fairies, because the beings I see look like fairies, but also insect-like or alien-like. A lot of cray. Well, yeah, that certainly can be part of it. And the other thing is that something that is not completely physical can change shape and morph into other things, and that can be affected by your own prejudices, expectations, fears, anxieties, hopes, and dreams. And so, if something is not physical, your own mind can actually make it take whatever shape, unless it's really determined to show itself as it is. And most of the time, they're trying to be whatever shape you want them to be. So I work really hard on letting them show me who they actually are, and they're surprised by that. And when I see some of the fairy creatures that I've seen that are not pretty in our way we look at pretty, they worry that they're going to scare us, some of them, and are quite, I don't know what the right word is, but delighted is part of it when I tell them it's okay, that I like them fine just the way they are, and I'm not afraid of what they look like. So they appreciate it. There's all that. So let's see. Keith says, interesting, a multiverse of group consciousness tulpas actually makes sense. How does one shield themselves? Drawing a pentagram?
I think you're talking about what I was referring to as far as the Akasha. Am I right there? So the way they would do that, the way you do it yourself is like they said in the there's an old Golden Dawn invisibility ritual you can look at, but the idea is you fill if you want to make yourself invisible by this method, what you would do is you have to be able to control the Akasha, which means you've done some developmental work and you've mastered the control of the elements probably, or you're going to be control it. But you bring the Akasha around you, giant black egg, and you form it around you with, since the Akasha is timeless and spaceless, anything that hits that Akasha will just be lost in time and space. It'll be like there's nothing there. It'll be like it just disappeared into the void. So that's how you do the invisibility on the astral and mental planes. Is you build yourself in an Akashic. But how capable you are of that is going to depend on how well you can command the elements, how balanced you are. The Akasha becomes manipulable more directly, or your elements are in balance. The elements are derived out of the Akasha, and where your elements are equalized within you, earth, air, fire, and water, then you'll be able to control the Akasha that much easier. So if you're way out of balance in your elements, you're probably not going to have any success with the Akasha.
Pastor says, yeah, like Jesus is probably a giant thought form because people put so much energy into it over the centuries. Yeah, I'm sure. Keith says, lesser banishing ritual.
That's a good ritual. It doesn't help with invisibility. It's definitely
Good for protection.
Yeah, it's definitely
And it helps with
yeah.
starting the process of balancing the elements in yourself.
Well, yeah, it does. If you're doing the lesser banishing right, you will. If you're really focusing on the elements and you're pulling the elements in and you're doing it with full concentration like you're supposed to, yes, it will balance your elements very nicely. take some repetition.
So James says, "Blessed be. I love Ian's recommendation of the men who stare at goats." Yeah,
Thank you. That was a very
that was
entertaining show. Yeah.
interesting. Asher says, "Yep, that's why self-forgiveness and getting rid of unworthiness and self-contempt should be worked out as much as possible while alive." Absolutely. Fluid Mystic says, "Be not afraid." Yes, fear is definitely not a good thing, especially when it comes to that kind of stuff. Asher says, "Yep, like some fairies can look like scary faces in the dark, and I try to be accepting because I don't want to be judgy if they're ugly." Maybe they think I'm ugly. Yeah,
Could
maybe
be,
they
yeah.
do. Ella says, "What do the fairies you saw look like?" They look like different things. I mean, some of them are just absolutely beautiful. When we were at the cabin on the power spot, I saw a lot of different kinds of fae there. I saw trolls and gnomes and small fairies, big fairies. I saw what I would assume to be like the local queen of the fae that was there. She had the most beautiful aspect I've ever seen in my life. It's hard to describe the beauty that she had. When I in the same place when I encountered the forest troll, we were just sitting under the trees and I felt a presence and saw like a little movement in the air by this tree. And I just sat there and just let my eyes unfocus and gazed at it to see what was there. And this very large, like 9 foot or more tall being appeared, and he was very, you know, it's hard to describe, but he was huge and sort of fierce looking, um, very barky, lots of that kind of color and stuff in him. And then he noticed that I saw him and then immediately started trying to change what I could see to be smaller and less, I don't know, in my opinion, glorious. Um, and I noticed that he was doing that. And then I said, "You don't need to do that for me. You can just be who you are." And if you just look at something like that, like the stories we have in our unconscious and so forth about evil creatures and beings that are going to come out and do something to you, he would fit into some of those stories because of how big and powerful and strange I say, looked. Um, so, and there's others like the tree spirit that wanted to try and startle me was just a floating green head, didn't have anything else, and was like making spooky sounds, which I found adorable and kept making me laugh. So he didn't like that. I kind of offended the poor guy, but I couldn't help it because he was pretty cute. And they're all different. It's like every single one of them is different. I saw with my eyes open with another person seeing them too, some smaller ones that are like about the size of dragonflies, and they just sort of fluttered into the bedroom where I was up on the second floor of this house. And they filled the room. They were just there flittering around all over the place. And then a larger one that had kind of like a butterfly shaped wings, who was clearly in charge of the littler ones, came in to like corral them and move them out to go do their job, whatever it was. It was like an amazing thing to witness. And I was afraid to move when that happened because I knew that I was being given a glimpse into this reality, and the link to it is incredibly tenuous. It's like this very special state that I was in, and I tried to maintain that state as long as possible, and then they all fluttered out the window, and then they were gone. So there's no one kind of description when it comes to the Fae. They're all a little bit different. The little brownie kind of guy that was in my bedroom that came in with the plant, he was like short and was wearing buckled shoes. I mean, fairly traditional kind of get up, little suit and everything, and was quite embarrassed by my activity at the time. And so, it's just like all the animals, insects, and plant life that we have. We have a huge amount of variety, and there's just so many different kinds of shapes that they can take. It's just no one thing. A lot of times they look kind of hard, like sharp, sharp features. When the gnomes came into my room to show themselves to me, um, they wanted to come up one at a time and each showed me their face, and they wanted to know if I could tell the difference between them. So if I was really seeing them, and they were all wrinkly and had different sized noses and different eyes, and some had facial hair and some didn't. Like, they were all very distinct. When I had that experience, it was like a very detailed line drawing. You could see their pores. I could see their everything, all of their features and so forth. And I said, yes, I can see each one of you, and you're all very different. So maybe they don't like being misidentified or lumped in together with everybody else. I mean, people like to be seen for who they are. I don't know, but anyway, that's some of them, some of the ones that I saw. So, like I said, all different. The fluid mystic says Josephine McCarthy says a lot about void state and using it for vanishing from inner radars.
Yeah, that would be.
Chief Keef says Babe in the Egg of Blue makes sense now.
Yes, and that's exactly the the goal of that. Except that I would take that and I would make that egg be a deep purple, almost,
Almost black.
almost black purple. But black is one of the colors normally used for the acacia. But according to Barden, the violet is actually the best and closest how you actually perceive the acacia clairvoyantly.
Fluid says sounds similar. Astra says, wow, Fairy Queen. Yeah, that was spectacular. What a blessing to see them. Yeah, I was just kind of astonished. I sat there for about an hour or so just watching them because I was like, wow, okay, I need to stay still and just sort of perceive and allow. That says, I love all around here, and in time we've become family. I greet them good morning and check on them throughout the day and night. Yeah, and they are, it's like they were sort of like part of the local life forms. Yes, Gaga says a lot of sorcerers I hear say dragons are the most powerful and good for protection. Oh, dragons are definitely powerful and good for protection. You have to be careful with them. Chief says gnome-like beings can be very mischievous. Well, they can be, but these were like the elemental gnomes, not just any old gnome that came to see me. So they were coming directly from the Earth zone gnome thing.
Yeah.
Some dude says, peace, peace. Hi. Beth says, I've only seen one dragon, purple and gold, flew over the house as a baby, flew back as a huge adult and female. Cool. I've seen a few different types. River dragons, a large spirit dragon with two heads, one at each end, air dragon from the airplane. I've seen a few of those now because I saw them again. Some dude says, I have a question. What are your thoughts on magic squares and the combination of gematria and numerology?
I don't know exactly. I mean, the magic squares used for the planetary seal, and those seem to be functional and legitimate, but I have never been able to find out how they were derived or anything. I've never seen anything accurate on where they came from or anything. So some magic squares seem to work. I don't know if they work because it relates to the numbers. I suppose I should try and get a hold of a Mercury, find out. They'd be the ones to ask about that. But I don't know myself. I know that there are certain accepted ones for the planetary squares, and those seem to work and have functions. So I don't know if it's due to used over years or if there's some mathematical thing. I don't really have a conclusion on that one myself, though I have mulled over the subject quite a bit.
And for myself, math makes my head hurt. I read a book on gematria and I was screaming throughout the entire book. So not my cup of tea. Doesn't work with my personality apparently.
Well, gematria doesn't do much for me too, generally, especially the way they use. Um, yeah, there are some valid aspects to it, but it's yeah.
So Asher says, "Yep, Chief. One stole my neighbor's potato, then they took my potatoes, then they returned the potatoes. I'm going to draw him stealing potatoes and give it to my neighbor."
Yeah.
Gaga says, "What is the purpose of the Fae's existence? Do they have roles or jobs?" Well, yeah, they're part of nature. They're part of the invisible nature of reality of all existence. So yeah, they have jobs. I think that on some level, what that fact that they can be externalized and see what's going on is where mimicry and different ways of camouflage and so forth evolved for different animals and insects and things like that. And they're part of the communication network between plants and trees, and they are also part of the communication network between plants and people. There used to be a much more um, common two-way communication between the fairy kingdom and magical people, witches, etc. And then in recent times, somebody decided to start writing about all the horrible things that they thought were going to happen based on superstition, um, and started separating us more from the fairy world. And I think that's starting to shift back, starting to get more experiences, like my granddaughter seeing one on a job she's at. It's like the world's, or our ability to interact with their world is becoming more common, I think. And who knows exactly why, but I think it's a good thing. And yes, a lot of times they're very busy doing their own thing. They help heal stuff and all kinds of things. Some dude says, "Oh my God, a cat just appeared next to me. Hope it's your cat." Steve says, "Some dude, pretty sure you're working with the djinn and planetary spheres when it comes to magic squares." Some dude says, "Numbers are the language of the universe. The square is the inverted circle and represents created reality." Sandcat says, "I can't maths." I'm with you, Sandcat.
Me too. I tried to take some calculus when I was at the community college, and yeah, I got a B in it, but man, it took me way excessive amount of time and effort.
Huge
So
amount of effort on his part.
yeah, like hours longer than it should have. I was really bad at it.
Beth says, "I wonder what a good gift would be for a dragon. I thought of putting fresh meat in my outdoor brick fireplace." Well, I think, a nice big rock. All those stories about hordes and dragons, and they like things that are sparkly, so, that could be something. Ella says, "What do you think of astrology and reading current energies? A lot of people saying they can see the unrest happening during this time, especially with this current election." I think that they're an indication, and humans are the ones who interpret that depending on what they're aware of or what they're focusing on. So I don't know how universal it is. And I think it is, like with a lot of this stuff, it depends on you as an individual whether it's going to affect you directly or not. And as much as you delve into the process on your own, the more of effect it will have, because you're creating those thought forms and channels into your consciousness to have the universe communicate for you. But in the end, we are all ultimately responsible for our own actions and what we do with the information we get. We have to make individual choices how to approach our current times. I personally think that the unconscious of the human race is just out there without any kind of um, ability to filter. It's like completely unfiltered stuff, just spewing out. Whatever thoughts come into somebody's mind is spewing out of their mouth and then spewing into action. And I find it kind of frightening, but I'm also encouraged by some of the current shifts. And maybe as, a whole, things will be shifting back in a more positive direction. But, it's like these are large forces, these are large karmic curves. Um, and, the collective unconscious is a huge thing. Too much for any individual person to actually understand, comprehend, or do anything about. So really, back to the self. The only thing you can actually control or do anything with is you. So regardless of whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. It may be true, it may not be true, it doesn't matter. You're the person who's in charge of yourself. So take that to heart and do the best you can. That's about all we've got, I think. Okay, so that says I'm the only female in my family that does not see the world through numbers. Chief says, yes, odd department.
Yeah, Yesod is, for those who don't know, it's
Yesod.
a lunar sphere on the tree of life. It's number 9. Its number is 9, the number of rhythm and period. Okay, word isn't going to be pronounceable to me, but rhythm and the aspect of the ocean and the tides and all that is associated with Yesod, but also emotions, emotional aspects, and astral travel.
Right.
So,
And I certainly use numbers in the basic sense, like associated with planets and different things like that, but not my personal numbers. Fluid Mystic says, I like to think about numbers as symbols because in reality they're just symbols as language is a form to some powers that they represent. Beth says, fairies are here long before we were and they'll be here after us and it's a privilege to call them my friends. Yes, absolutely. They're a part of reality, whether we know them, believe in them, can see them or not. They exist and there they are. Some dude says the Grimm brothers did a number on the reputation of the Fae. And it was not my cat. Well, okay, a strange cat. Sandcat says fairies must look at us humans and wonder what on earth we are doing. Oh, we look pretty funny to them. A lot of them are very amused by our antics, and they go like, "This is just so strange." That says I'm trying a new mead recipe, and it is on YouTube. The show is Tasting History. Good luck. Astra says, "Why are fire elementals so grumpy? I had one with red eyes. They would mess with my furnace last winter. How should I help him be less grumpy? I put a cup of water on my furnace to calm him."
well,
Ooh, I don't know if water would calm down a
well,
fire spirit.
they aren't naturally grumpy. It's possible that um, you have offended them in the past or something like that,
Somehow,
potentially, or
like giving them
but
water.
well, my goal would be, or my thought would be, to try to make friends with them. I don't know off the top of my head what I would recommend. Just like maybe give them some type of an offering or something, or like you could, like, for instance, charge up a piece of paper, or even better, I'd charge up a candle with like peace and friendship with the fire spirits, and then burn it, and imagine that as the candle burns, all of your intention is going into the fire element, and the fire spirits are becoming aware of it, and your desire to be friends with them. Something like that should work
That's
fairly
much
well.
better than the idea of a glass of water, because a glass of water would
Yeah.
destroy a fire spirit. So,
So it
yeah,
could be something
I
you're
would
burning,
think.
something you're burning like that, be an offering to the fire spirits as a gesture of peace and friendship with them. They aren't grumpy, so to speak, but they're naturally volatile, being fiery, and they're very in motion, and
Energetic.
hard, energetic, and hard to contain. So that's just part of their natural properties. So, um, yeah, the more you can come in harmony with that, the more you'll be in harmony with the fire spirit.
They're good for energy to like help yourself. Danget says, I would welcome a stray cat. Astor says, I saw him mean mugging me like. Oh, I'm sorry. That says, Sandcat, I get outside and dance with them. The stray cats. Sandcat says, fire elementals are fiery by nature. Yeah.
Yes, they are.
And that
He's
sounds
very,
lovely, Beth.
very active and pushing all the
Yes.
time, and they don't like to be still. And
And contained the
yeah.
wrong way. Gaga says, is there any magic or spiritual possession I can use to increase my IQ and quick thinking?
Actually, there is, but
Work with the mercury spirits and the
well,
air elementals?
yeah, the mercury spirits, or air, air element. That's what the air element does. Air element is associated with enlightenment, such also, and artistic talents and endeavors and thinking, your intellect. If you get an astral plane, you get more artistic and emotional aspects of the air element, and on the mental plane, the IQ, the intelligence,
Quick thinking, thought
quick thinking,
processes.
enlightenment, yep, all that. So not only do you need to master the elementals, you need to master them on all three planes, as much as possible, really, in a system of self development.
Right. That's how you get the balance. Beth says, I'm going to put some rocks and crystals out. Thank you, Siofra. You're welcome, Beth. Let me know how that goes. Asher says, I wish people would just chill out and cooperate. Yes, I do too. Fluid Mystic says, I don't know at GACA, but when mercurials are appearing, I like to study science and search for connection.
Yeah, Mercury affects me a lot when it goes retrograde. Technical stuff just screws up for me.
Yeah, his ruling planet is Mercury because he's a Gemini, but
I'm
it
a Virgo.
is, I mean, yeah, sorry.
That goes for Gemini too.
But Gemini is also,
Yeah.
he's a Virgo, not a Gemini. I have Gemini. That's where I come from. All right, some in me. My rising sign. Yes, my rising sign is Gemini. But anyway, yeah. Because I was just thinking, it's your ruling planet. My ruling planet is Saturn, but it doesn't affect me negatively when it goes retrograde. Probably a good thing since it goes for so long. Like, that'd be a long time. But anyway. Beth says, give me fae and animals any day over humans. Yeah, they're a lot more predictable. So it says, maybe these ones. Sandcat says, I'm with you, Beth. Fae and animals. Beth says, Sandcat, love. Chief Keef says, do fire elementals smell like sulfur? No.
I don't think so.
I've never noticed them smelling like
there
sulfur.
There shouldn't be any reason they do either.
I've smelled sulfur before there was fire there, but that was a different kind of spirit, and it was not a fire elemental. It just presented itself as fire, and that was like.
I mean, I suppose you could get some but I don't think it's a general case at all.
I associate the smell of sulfur when it comes to spirits with negative energy. So that's me, maybe. I don't know. Astra says, okay, that's a great idea, guys. I was thinking to get him to cool off. Astra says, I'm a Gemini. All right.
Some dude says, no, trying to like cool off a fire spirit is like,
denying its reality.
or like trying to torture it or something.
Or torturing it, yes.
Yeah,
you're trying to kill me. Put me out. No, don't put me out.
Yeah, that's a tricky thing about the fire element. When it's within yourself, to try to control it and have it under control internally.
Some dude says it would be neat if we could unlock our DNA and not have to sleep for 8 hours. I like my dream reality, so I'm not into not sleeping. Astra says that's probably why fairies are around. They are mercurial too. That says I get thinner, younger, and sexier in the astral plane. Yes, why don't not? We all?
Why not? Right.
Some dude says I know some people and they only need 3 or less hours of sleep to be healthy. Well, good for them. They must be like Tesla.
That's what I get if I don't take my trazodone. I take a medication for sleep because I don't sleep well. I have insomnia and I'll go for days and then crash type of thing.
That says Pluto in retrograde is tough for me. I'm sorry.
I'm happy to have my 8 hours of sleep nowadays with my meds.
Sandcat says, Beth, I am all those things, only in my dreams. Astra says, oh no, laughing with a fire emoji. Violet says, thank you for your time and wisdom. Love you both a lot. Thank you, Violet. And yes, we are coming up on our hour and a half. Gaga says, I heard every city has a spirit controlling over it. Is that true? I'd say every city has got like a general oversoul type of like identity that the people who live there feed, and it becomes kind of like
I think generally most everything has some spirits that are in control of it. There's a bunch of them that are just for dealing with certain things. So I would say that's probably true.
Certainly the energy of a place adds to or takes away from or affects whatever that might be. So Beth says, Sandcat, you'll get there. I didn't plan it. It just was. And love Gemini women. All right, so probably now's a good time since we have 10 seconds left. So bye, everybody. As usual, it's been fun. I'm going to get back into making some videos. We've been dealing with a lot of real world things the past couple of weeks. And so thank you all for participating. It's been a lively discussion as usual. And you certainly keep me on my feet, both of us. And we enjoy these opportunities. So see you next time.
Yeah, and Beth, I'll tell you, it really is boring at 3 in the morning, and you don't want to wake up everybody in the house. What do? You know?
All right.
Yep. Goodbye, all.
Bye bye.